So welcome, everybody. I'd like to call this to order. And Mr. Chuley, if we could have the roll call, please. Oh, let's do the pledge first. All rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now, Mr. Chuley, the roll call, please.
Mrs. Fryrick?
Here.
Mr. Posnell?
Here.
Mr. Robinson?
Here.
Mr. Sanders?
He is not here.
Okay. Mr. Scalette?
Here.
Mrs. Schrader?
Here.
Mr. Sears?
Here.
Mr. Sullivan?
Here.
Mr. Tillman?
Here.
8 members present. Thank you. And do we have any public comment to view? Okay.
When you feel refreshed, there is one more. Quite formatted here, but.
So everybody had time to finish? Okay, I think that's enough time. Thank you. So we have the link here to the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting of May 10th. If there are no changes, I would submit them to be approved as they stand. And moving on, Mr. Sears, Treasurer's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Posnell. Just a little update on interest. Of course, as you would understand, it's way down, 7,000 for the past month, down from 9,000, but that's a good sign, I guess. We're spending the money as we intended. Tonight, again, we have a consent agenda. Would any board member like any of the items considered separately, or are there any questions on any of these items? If not, the chair moves approval of the below mentioned items.
Second.
Questions or comments? This can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you. The board met in executive session on May 12th of 2021 as permitted by Section 707 of the Sunshine Act for the purpose of discussing matters of personnel. No official action was taken. The board also met in executive session in virtual format tonight as permitted by Section 707 of the Sunshine Act for the purpose of matters of school safety, and no official action was taken. I would like to recommend that Ms. Chichuli be appointed our board secretary for a 2-year term beginning June 1st, 2021, as part of her responsibilities as the assistant to the superintendent for operation.
Second.
Thank you. Questions or comments? I think this can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
I would also move that Mr. Sears be appointed treasurer for a 1-year term beginning July 1st, 2021, at no compensation, I might add.
Second.
Questions or comments? This can also be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none.
And I'm going to slip one in before we do Ms. Bowen. We intend to move back to in-place format for the June meeting. We're not sure what that means exactly. We will probably have it in the cafeteria somewhere, but that is our intent, to move from a virtual format to an in-site place starting in mid-June. Now, having said that, the happy part of the night, Ms. Bowen is going to be attending her last meeting as student board representative. This has been a strange year, and she has really stepped up and done a great job. So we will miss her. And I think, Wendy, do you have there you go. So Ms. Bowen will be getting a plaque to recognize her service for the previous year. And Carly, you've done a great job.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thanks, Carly.
So, Dr. Williams.
Have a good summer, Carly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well deserved. Thank you, Carly. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Posno. Tonight in the superintendent's report, the first item of business in the superintendent's report is to recognize some national merit students. And for that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Ellis.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. I appreciate you having me this evening to sort of continue our celebration another day. Each year we're honored to typically have a number of national merit qualifiers, and this year was no exception. We had an outstanding senior class, and we were fortunate to have 7 students that were recognized as national merit scholars this year. The 4 students, you can see them in the agenda that reached the commended level. These students typically fall in the top 1 to 1.5% of all scores on the PSET and MSQT, which they take during the junior year. Those 4 students were Alex Gleba, Devlin Ravigum, Chrissy Sprankle, and Jenny Tao. And I believe, if I saw the pictures earlier there, that Chrissy is here with her mother and father. So congratulations, Chrissy. There she is. Congratulations, Chrissy. Also, we are fortunate to have 3 finalists, which is outstanding for a school our size. I'm very proud of these 3. They're also honors graduates that just over the last couple of days. Nick Aparicio, Ethan Lee, and John Ports, and I believe all of them are here as well. I saw Nick with his mom and dad in the audience. I saw Ethan with his mom and dad, and it looked like, Jack, you were on a train somewhere, and your mom might have been sitting at home. So I appreciate you coming out this evening to celebrate this accomplishment. So congratulations to the 3 of you. And finally, we were also honored to have 2 students that qualified as National Hispanic Scholars. That's another designation that the College Board represents to recognize students of Hispanic descent in terms of their accomplishment, also very outstanding test scores as well. Those two students were once again Nick Aparicio, who we just recognized, who is here, and also Sarah Rivera. Congratulations again, Nick. I'm certainly very proud of them. You had a chance to hear my remarks over the course of the weekend in the various ceremonies. I'm proud of the entire senior class, but this is particularly noteworthy, this accomplishment, and comes with a lot of recognition and opportunity for these students. So I'm very, very proud of all of you. And good luck to you, and have a great day. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ellis. Thank you, students. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for representing York Suburban very, very well. Now for the superintendent's report.
Yeah, I guess before you start, we could mention that all of those folks are welcome to stay through the meeting if they want, but if they've got something else to do, or, feel free to drop off. Their feelings won't be hurt.
And I'd like to offer my congratulations, a shining jewel for York Suburban. Congratulations to you all.
All right, for tonight's report, I just want to pick up again on the graduation ceremonies that Dr. Ellis and his leadership team pulled off over the weekend and yesterday. Very well done, very, very well done, and very much appreciated from the feedback that I've received. So thank you, Dr. Ellis. Thank you for pulling off a difficult thing during a pandemic. It's very well done, and talking with Dr. Ellis are some things that maybe could be incorporated in future graduations. So we'll be discussing those kinds of things as time goes on. I'd like to make a couple of recognitions tonight. The first one involves a redesign of a police car for Yorkshire elementary school students. A contest was arranged by Springersbury Township Police Department's Lieutenant Brian Wilbur, and the contest was facilitated by the art teacher at Yorkshire, Jen Hall. And the students were able to submit what they believed a police car redesign should look like. And the winning design is what you can see on screen. Is from Tulea McGovern, one of Mrs. King's second graders. And that's the winning design there. And as part of her submission, she had to explain, all the students had to explain why they chose the design that they chose. And I have highlighted on the screen her words from her submission, saying, "My inspiration was that the world needs love. People are sad because of coronavirus. Also, people need to be loved and accepted no matter what their skin color is." And this event was very well received by students and staff, and also got a fair amount of media coverage. So congratulations to Tulea for that winning design. So if you see that police car with that design running around Springersbury Township, you'll know where that design came from. It came from one of our students at Yorkshire. But moving to the secondary level, I'm happy to also report at the high school was again recognized by the U.S. News and World Report in their annual rankings of high schools across the country. And the table you see on screen there, you can see that in 2020, York Suburban High School was ranked 53rd in the state. In 2021, it was ranked 34th in the state, which is a considerable jump, highly unusual jump in the rankings. And you can see it's also improved nationally, and of course remains #1 in the New York metro area. So congratulations to Dr. Ellis and his team, staff and students and administrators. And it's also important to recognize that this kind of a recognition doesn't just happen because they walked through the doors in 9th grade. This started a long, long time ago, back in kindergarten. You can't have a high achieving high school without a strong foundation from the elementary and middle school levels. So I wanted to share that with you today. Also, a couple of other things in the superintendent's report, another recognition. We have the Pennsylvania School Public Relations Association every year recognizes some outstanding achievements in that realm across Pennsylvania. And this year, York Suburban was recognized in 3 categories. The October 2020 Pride was recognized for merit in the publication category. And in the special purpose category, the 2020 Bold Marketing Campaign received an award of excellence. And in the videos category, the 1920 retiree video received an award of honor. So kudos to Mr. Staub and Dr. Krauser for their work on these items. The stuff is posted, will be posted, those links will be posted in the superintendent's report, so you may see them at your leisure. Tonight, as mentioned in the public comments, we're talking about modifying the current health and safety plan to allow for optional face coverings for those who are vaccinated. So we'll be asking you to make a motion on that tonight. That is for the summertime. For the 2021 school year, we do not know exactly what is going to be required of us, but we anticipate that it will not be the current health and safety plan. So we will have to, prior to the beginning of the school year, probably by what I'm hearing anyway, is by July 30th, we'll have to have something in place, a plan in place for mitigation strategies that conforms with whatever PD and Department of Health sends our way. So I wanted to make you aware of that. Also, I'd like to also let you know that we may be asking you to make a new 520.1 emergency provision motion at some point this summer, because this will give us some flexibility in the event that we would want to implement some kind of virtual learning day instead of having a snow day, or if a water main break shuts down a building, we could pivot to a virtual day, or some other disruption that keeps us from having in-person instruction, that we can pivot to a virtual instructional day if we need to, so that the school year does not get extended beyond what we normally plan for the end of the school year. So for example, this year, yesterday was our graduation and last student day. And if we had had traditional snow days, that last student day would be sometime in the middle of the week here, or toward the end of the week. So they proved valuable this year, and we anticipate wanting and needing to use them going forward. So you will, at a future meeting, probably be asked to approve a 520.1 emergency plan, and more information on that will be coming. Also in the student enrollment report also in the superintendent's report is the student enrollment report for May that is attached, and that'll be posted as well. So with that, are there any questions about any items that were in the superintendent's report?
This is Joel, Tim.
Yeah.
It wasn't something you presented tonight, but one of the things that got my attention in the report was our graduation ranking. And the question I have is this: it says number 242 in the state.
Mm-hmm.
Is that 242 of all the high schools, or is that 244 of the districts?
Not districts.
It's high school ranking.
Yeah, there's
So Philadelphia, for example, might have 20 high schools.
Right.
Pittsburgh has half a dozen or so.
Yeah, I should know the number of high schools. It's got to be, it might be 2,000.
It's 2,000. All right.
It might be. It's somewhere around there. I
And
don't know
relative
exactly.
to the other rankings, that one jumped off the page, frankly. What is the number, and is it up, down, or sideways?
Actually, Dr. Ellis and I just had this conversation just today, because I had the same observation. Well, that seems out of whack. But when you look at the numbers, it's not actually out of whack, especially compared to the other high-performing schools. And if Dr. Ellis is willing, I'll let him explain what he found in his research on that item today.
Appreciate it.
Sure. For one piece, overall, our percentage of graduates is 94%. We always aspire to be as high as we possibly can with that. And traditionally, our 5-year graduation rate gets into the very high 90s. And this most recent year, I think the high that was about a 96.5. But I did go back and look at the 33 schools ahead of us, because I was kind of curious to figure out why we might have ranked as low as we did. I found that there were 3 other schools that were also at 94%, a couple schools that were at 93% that were actually ahead of us, and the majority of schools were at 95 or 96%. So what it seemed to indicate is that the top high schools generally have higher expectations for graduation, and therefore they're not necessarily graduating. There was at least 28 schools below us that had 100% graduation rate. And there was something about 45 schools that were below us that had 99 or 100% graduation rate. So you try to rectify that with the fact that our performance is so much better on assessments, yet not as good on graduation. And that's where Dr. Williams and I really felt that our high expectations for students were part of that reason. And it'd be similar in other school districts that are well achieving.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Dr. Williams, I'd just like to add, I had the privilege and the pleasure of watching the presentation of the township police cars that drove up lights and sirens on the other day with all the kids outside cheering, and Talea and her twin sister getting a ride around the neighborhood with the lights and sirens, and her parents in the car with the two of the police officers. It was really very noteworthy too that she is the granddaughter of a former teacher, Mr. Milk Bushy, who was a physics teacher and football coach at the high school. So there was a great deal of excitement, and the children were really, really pleased with this. And they do hope to use the car on a regular basis in the township. So that was kind of exciting. The other one is I would like to extend to my congratulations to Dr. Ellis and his team. They put together a marvelous, marvelous graduation weekend at York Suburban. As far as I could tell, it went off with almost out a hitch. Got a little spooky last night when the weather looked like it might not be on our side, and it was 25 degrees colder than the night before. And some people were sitting there with their winter coats on during the presentation. But the idea of the two smaller programs each Saturday and Sunday evening, and then the big one just for the students who really wanted to be together with their friends, I think worked out extremely, extremely well. So thank you so much to all those at the high school that made this weekend happen. It was well worth it.
Thank you for that. Okay, and the last item under superintendent's report, the administration recommends that effective May 26, 2021, the York Suburban School District Health and Safety Plan be modified to allow fully vaccinated people the option to remove face coverings as per the March 16, 2021 amended order of the Acting Secretary of the Pennsylvania Department of Health regarding the requirement for universal face coverings.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, discussion? Then I think this can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Dr. Williams, before I let you off the hook, in looking at the enrollment, did I look at that right? That at the end of May, 25% of our students were remote, either through Cyber Charter or TOPS?
Yeah, I believe it is about 25%.
So what's your guess moving forward?
Well, Dr. Ketterman and Dr. Krauser are currently surveying the remote students' families now, and that survey is not closed yet. But the percentage of those who will return to in-person instruction is extremely high.
Okay,
in that survey.
that's a good thing.
I mean, really high.
Good. Okay. Now I'll let you off the hook.
I'll get you back on later.
I knew you wouldn't disappoint me, Mr. Sears.
Well, at the other end of the spectrum then, Dr. Williams, what does it look like with our little kindergartners? Registration up, down?
It's a little bit behind
Okay.
where we would expect it to be. We're not sure why. It seems like we say the same thing every year. It's a little behind, it's a little behind.
Just curious.
We still don't know. We still don't know how many sections of kindergarten we're going to need yet.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Ms. Chichuli.
Good evening, directors. Our first item is a consent agenda. You have before you the business office report, which includes items 1 through 11. Would any board member like any of these items considered separately? Are there any questions on any of these items? If not, I would ask that a motion be made to approve the below mentioned items.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? This can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Item B is the general fund budget for 21-22, including all allocations for planned expenditures of $63,374,502.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Thank you. Questions or comments?
Don, is this the time to get into the detail, or do we wait for the?
No, that's
discussion?
the next one. This is the budget.
This is the budget.
Yeah.
I guess the problem I have with that order is that we're talking about expenditures, some of which are dependent upon assumptions that were made, which drive the tax rate. So as long as we can have that conversation, that's fine.
We can certainly have the conversation. So I'm taking that B can be a unanimous roll call vote.
No,
I have
I
a question.
Okay.
No,
Um,
Go ahead.
I'll go first. So
Go ahead.
on page 2 of the document, it asks us what our unassigned fund balance percentage is. And that page, at least in my interpretation, we check the box that says we are not within allowable limits, that our fund balance is too high. And I would interpret this whole page to say that if we are too high, we cannot approve this budget. So I would like an explanation of that, what this page is telling me. Because I would say it says we have a fund balance percentage limit at 8%. We've clearly said it was not within the allowable limits. We checked that box. And the first statement on that page says we shall not approve an increase in real property taxes unless we have adopted a budget that meets those limits. So I need further explanation.
Mrs. Chichuli?
I'm logging into PDE's website right now because we are within the allowed amount.
We
And I'm guessing that.
check the box in our budget documentation. It says we're not.
I understand that. I'm sorry, I didn't finish my sentence, but I'm guessing that it says that because it says 8.09% and it has to be exactly 8%. So if you could just give me 1 second and I will log into.
It says 9.49% on this document,
On the second page?
on the second page. You are not looking at the document that is linked to the agenda that's on the public website at this point in time.
This is the budget that we are passing today. I believe this morning, the budget that was attached was the budget that was attached from May 10th. But
What
this,
I'm saying is that, I pulled this budget opened it within the last 15 minutes. So what is posted on our public website right now
can you please refresh?
doesn't reflect what is on your screen,
I just
unless it's been
refreshed.
changed in the last 15 minutes.
If you could just refresh your page. This is the budget that is posted on the district website.
It is not.
Then this is the wrong link. Let's try that.
Yep. For what it's worth, it has a timestamp at the bottom of 5/6/2021 at 10:15 a.m.
Yes.
Mine says 1021. And it shows an 8.09% figure for the unassigned fund balance. And I just opened it.
Mr. Henry, is it possible that some of the board members, they may need to clear their cache and that their internet is auto-generating a prior document?
So I'll ask a different question.
Yeah, I don't think so. Kathy, I'm wondering, do you have a different document?
No, the document that was posted this morning was carried over from the May 10th, and we updated that budget. So I just refreshed my page and clicked on the link, and this is the document that I get.
So here's the question that I have.
All right.
What
let me
are
see.
our obligations to the public to post this document in advance of us voting on it?
All right, I just refreshed and it's correct now.
You have to refresh the agenda page. And then click on the link and you'll see the correct document. And the obligation.
All right, I have that now, but I did not have that 15 minutes ago. When I opened the agenda, when we started this meeting, 7 o'clock. I opened that link after we started this meeting, and I did not get this version until now. And I don't feel comfortable that we've provided anyone with adequate ability to review this.
Mr. Chuli, what did this document say for the 28-day posting? Did it show the 8.09%?
I have to check our district website.
I believe that it had. So as long as that is accurate, it has been publicly available for more than a month.
The version that we were looking at was date stamped 5/6. That's not 28 days.
5/6.
That
May
was
6th. That's what Mr. Sullivan looked at it as I did when he said that. I looked at mine and it said May 6th.
Yeah, I still have that tab open, by the way.
Yeah.
That was the budget that was posted for the May 10th meeting. Since then, the budget has been updated.
Line items have been updated.
Line items have been updated.
Have we met our obligation to have this posted for the proper period of time?
Yes.
Yes, because a proposed final budget was passed on April 26th. The budget can change at any given time between that time and the time that the final budget is adopted.
Okay.
That is correct.
And the 8.09% issue does not. Technically, 8.0% means one thing to me, and those zeros go on to infinity. So 8.09%, and you've correctly said it, it is not within the allowable limits. It's at least a heck of a lot closer than 9.49% was, but it's still not within the allowable limits. And this document says I'm not allowed as a school board member to pass this budget.
You're not allowed to raise
those
taxes.
limits.
I honestly think that this is a PDE formatting issue, not a budget issue.
I think, Kathy, I think it's one of the questions that we've had forever about how to apply these limits. The 8% that's imposed by PDE is what? Is that a binding limit or just a suggestion?
Our unassigned fund balance cannot increase 8%.
Is it true that if it's above 8%, we're not allowed to raise taxes? Is that the interpretation? We can have a budget that has a bigger fund balance.
I don't think that is I don't think that is the interpretation. The interpretation is that if you have more than 8% within your unassigned, then the board has to make some commitment of that fund balance. So if it's $100,000 that is carrying you over that 8%, then you have to either use that fund balance or commit it.
Is there any kind of prohibition that says we can't raise taxes if we have too much fund balance? Or did I just dream that up?
I'm not familiar with that, Brooke. I would have to.
Well, I have a solution for you, which is to use some of that additional money to decrease the tax increase slightly.
I'm just looking at the guidance while you all are talking. I just need a few minutes to pull up what you're referencing.
Thank you.
And I'm in the PDE website. Brooke, just as you're reading through that, 8% of the total planned expenditures, which includes a $500,000 budgetary reserve, would bring us to 5 million for unassigned, and my number is 4.8 million. So there has to be something wrong with the website.
Yeah, so the provision that applies here, I believe, is section 6-688 of the Public School Code, which basically indicates a certain percentage relative to school district total budgeted expenditures. So there's a limit on unreserved, undesignated fund balance as a percentage of total budgeted expenditures. And I believe what are your budgeted expenditures, Kathy?
My total budgeted expenditures are $63,834,563, and that's with a $500,000 budgetary reserve.
Yeah.
Even without the budgetary reserve, that 4.8 million is under the 8%.
Yeah, the calculation you're saying out loud to me, I am calculating it below 8%. I don't know why it's formatting as something above that.
Why it's flagging. And when you have to run validation errors on the website, and it would have flagged if it was a problem, and it did not flag as a validation error.
Looks like the discrepancy might be in the total budgeted expenditures on page 2, because you were saying 63.8 and it says 63.3. Just a hair under 63.4.
That's because of the $500,000 budgetary reserve, which is technically considered fund balance, because if you don't use it, then it goes back into the fund balance, but we budget it as an expense.
Yeah, and Kathy, you said you had around 8% would be about 5 million, and you're at 4 something.
I don't get that 5.1 that it has there. I get 5,069,960, and if you look on page 5, the unassigned is $4.8 million.
Which is below the statutory 8%.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're at 63 million. I'm reading straight from the school code, and it provides that 8% designation for budgets that are greater than 19 million, which is you guys. So according to her calculations, it's fitting. I'm not sure what's happening with the population on the. You would have an opportunity to correct that if there's something at issue with the form after the board passes the budget and you have to revisit it for some reason, you can always do that. But from what she's stating to you, the percentage is compliant.
Anybody else? Ellen, you had something.
You're muted, Ellen.
I'd like this to be a roll call vote because I'm going to be voting against it.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Then this can be a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mrs. Schrader,
Yes.
Mr. Tillman,
No.
Mr. Scalette,
Yes.
Mr. Sears,
No.
Mr. Sullivan,
Yes.
Mrs. Fryrick,
No.
Mr. Posnell.
Yes.
Motion passes.
So now the next motion was to approve the tax rate. And Mr. Sears, this is where, before we do this one, I would ask if there's a different motion.
I would like to move that we have no tax increase at all. Given the fact that we have, again, looked at this on what I've been calling a COVID bubble relative to the cyber kids and the good news that we heard tonight about the surveys. I'm just concerned about locking in a tax increase to cover temporary costs. I think that fund balance is supposed to be used to cover those kinds of costs. We also have received, as I understand it, about $1.3 million in federal funding that should be addressable, should be used, we should be able to use that at least to some degree to handle the learning loss or the makeups or whatever happens to be the proper utilization of that money. But we're not talking about millions of dollars to avoid a tax increase, but we are talking about potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars going forward if we lock a tax increase that we don't need to fund these temporary increases in expenditure. That's why we have fund balance. We're not going to drive it below maybe 6.5%, maybe 7%. We'll still have plenty of fund balance to handle emergencies. So I would move.
Do I have a second for that motion?
I will second that motion.
Okay, now continue on, Joel.
As I was saying, I'm of the opinion, and I hope it's not just an opinion, but that fund balance is supposed to be used for exactly the kind of expenses that have been causing us distress last year and potentially partway through next year. I'm not personally as concerned about a continuation of the number of cyber students that we had this year. I think we're going to see a dramatic drop, and I think we heard something this evening that might bear that out. Obviously, it's a projection, but it sounds like a very optimistic projection.
No, may I interject, please?
Right, of course.
I believe I've given you the wrong impression. We're surveying our top students. Those are top students. A very large percentage of our top students are going to come back face to face.
And we can't.
We don't have data on cyber charter students yet. And
would you think a small, maybe a quarter of the others, the cybers, would come back for the same reason? Not all, but
some will, and that is accounted for in this budget.
My recollection is that it was about 4 or 5 kids that were taken into account in that projection.
No, that's not correct.
Okay.
We accounted for 11 students returning.
Out of?
Out of 43.
I'm still convinced that our most prudent step is to use fund balance and wait a year to see just how permanent this change is, rather than locking in another tax increase.
Any other comments, thoughts on that? Then can we have a roll call vote on that motion, please?
Sure.
Public comment on that first. It's a newly added agenda item. Sorry for jumping in there.
Okay, sure.
Currently have no additional public comments.
Vince, can you just give it a minute just in case people are just hearing this? Thank you.
Absolutely. I just wanted to give you a current update.
Brooke, how long is reasonable?
Oh, I'm trying to think how long it's taken people to get things in. Vince, it usually takes them a minute or two to submit the email.
Correct. It's an online form. I'm also looking, and we currently have 18 live viewers.
Okay. Let's just give it another 30 seconds, Mr. President, and you can move forward.
Will do.
All right, I think we're good to go,
Okay.
Mr. Henry.
All right, thank you.
No additional.
So, Mr. Chuli, could you give us a roll call vote on the motion to have no tax increase for the coming year?
Yes. Mrs. Fyrick?
Are you
You're
muted?
muted.
Okay, I'm voting no because I want to vote against the motion. Is that correct? I don't favor
Yeah.
the motion. Okay, no, okay, no.
Okay. Mr. Sears?
Yes.
Mrs. Schrader?
No.
Mr. Sullivan?
No.
Mr. Posnell?
No.
Mr. Tillman?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
No.
Mr. Scalette?
No.
Okay, motion fails.
Okay. So let us return to the recommendation from the administration for a 1.9% increase at a real estate tax rate of 24.0967 mils. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Additional comments?
So John, you're leaving no room between 0 and 19.
I am not.
You didn't ask for motion between that. Just it's one or the other. And obviously we decided we don't want a 0. Now it's 19. No room for a motion for 1%.
That was going to be my intent. I'm surprised that wouldn't have occurred in a budget meeting. But can I ask, Ms. Schrader, I think you made the motion, right?
I did.
Can you table your motion,
I don't really want to. Do I have to?
please? Attorney Say, am I doing that correctly?
Did we have a second? I could not hear.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, so I mean, normally you would either vote it up or down, or if both members in your practice want to withdraw their motion and their second, it can go back to ground zero.
Just for you, Mr. Posnow, I'll withdraw it.
Thank you. Do I
You
have
owe
a motion?
me.
Do I have a motion that is different than the
Well, now, what about the
recommendation?
second? Does the second have to also withdraw?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
And that was,
Rich, I believe, or
was
Steve.
that you, Mr. Solomon?
Either one. I will for the good of the order.
Okay, thank you. So do I have a motion for a tax increase between the recommendation and zero?
I'd like to make a motion for a 1% tax increase.
And I will second that motion.
Mr. President, I'd just like to interject that this has been kicked down the road. We talked about this at the budget meeting, and I must admit that I'm a little annoyed by this.
Lois, and I can understand that. Conditions continue to change, and that's what really I think is driving my concern. It's not that we haven't kicked it. I understand that, but conditions are different today than they were a week ago.
Well, I'm not so sure about that, Joel, but we can agree to disagree.
Appreciate that.
So on that note, could we have one more roll call vote for 1%, please? Oh, wait a minute.
Check for public comment, please.
Do I again have to wait for my what, 1 minute?
I'll set my clock for a minute and a half. Mr.
Right.
Henry, you let us know.
I shall.
I'll comment in the meantime. So, I mean, I think the cyber bubble cost, we were looking at essentially 800,000 some dollars. That is the 45 students that were additional this year over last year. We'll recover some of those. We're saying a small percentage. We have $1.3 million in ESSER money that is also in the budget. That is one time that, in my opinion, is partially able to cover this, if it's fully able to cover it. And we have plentiful reserves, as evidenced by the conversation on our budget at the beginning of this. We have too much money sitting in our unassigned fund balance right now. And we have a lot of unknowns. We have one unknown is how much money is actually going to be left over from the 2021 or the 2020-2021 budget, of which we've spent about 80% so far. We have one more month. What are our projections for what is going to be left over in that budget? We've collected 95% of the revenues. We've spent 80% of the expenditures, and school is finished. So I'm concerned that we're over budgeting for next year, and I think we can handle this with the fund balance.
I am still concerned we're under budgeting for the year after next, beyond their capability to raise taxes.
That's where I am, that we've heard this scenario that in a matter of 5 years, we're going to be broke, and it's a very gloomy outlook. So while I respect the thoughts that have been expressed, Mr. Tolman, Mr. Sears, it worries me what's down the road. And as a prudent decision, I think this is the best move, and that's why I support it.
How are we doing on time?
Mr. President, we're almost at 3 minutes, which is good because I was informed by Dr. Krauser that there's a 92-second delay in viewing today's proceedings. So we should always give ourselves a full 3 minutes.
Okay.
and you are there right about now. Mr. Henry?
I do have at least one additional public comment, though I'm going to ask you to bear with us just one more moment. So here's our new comment relating to this topic. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So then, once again, Mr. Truly, could we have a roll call vote?
Yes.
Yes is to accept the motion.
Mr. Sullivan,
No.
Mr. Tillman,
Yes.
Mr. Sears,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
No.
Mrs. Fryrick,
No.
Mr. Posnow,
No.
Mr. Scalette,
No.
and Mrs. Schrader.
No.
Okay,
No more splitting the difference. Can I have a motion now to accept the administration's recommendation of the 1.9%?
Yes, Mr. President.
Okay, I think I heard, was that Mr. Robinson started out?
I defer to Mrs. Schrader.
Okay, Ms. Schrader. And so who's the second?
Second.
Thank you. Additional comment, or have we beaten it up enough? One more roll call vote, please.
Mr. Scalette,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mrs. Schrader,
Yes.
Mr. Posnow,
Yes.
Mr. Tillman,
No.
Mr. Sears,
No.
Mrs. Fryrick,
Yes. Oh, wait. Yes.
and Mr. Sullivan.
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, item D is a motion.
How about 2 and 3? We kind of ignored those. Did we
Oh.
accept 2 and 3 as part of 1?
Yes, that was the intent. Those remain unchanged.
Okay,
I heard the motion that was for C. If the board
Okay.
didn't think they were voting for all of C, then we should revote, but speak now.
okay.
Okay. Item D is the motion to accept a resolution authorizing the distribution of $663,736.43 of state gaming funds to 5,323 eligible homestead properties and 0 farmstead properties under Section 342 of Act 1.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Questions or comments? I think this can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous vote call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Item E is a request to refund penalties, fees imposed on the tax parcel that you see before you. The board on December 21st, 2020 voted to deny the request to waive the penalty fees on this parcel. And the taxpayer is requesting that the board refund those penalty fees paid.
Do I have a motion to deny the request?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
John, I have a question on that for Mrs. Chichilli. You gave us a letter that I assume came from the taxpayer. Is what he has outlined there a true, as to the best of your knowledge, assessment of the issues with the tax collector and what have you over in Spring Garden Township?
Well, over the course of this year, we've certainly had several discussions about that tax collector. That tax collector has resigned. And that was their experience with her.
I'm just, I am concerned that the taxpayers had so much trouble and he's paid the tax. He wants his fee, the fee back. Is that correct?
Penalty.
He wants a 10% penalty fee.
And how
Comes
much?
to $903.
Oh, okay. Well, this is not the mountain I'm going to die on, but I am concerned that we've had taxpayers that had such, poor experiences. And
unfortunately, it's an appointed position.
It's elected.
That's an elected position.
Correct. My apologies.
It's an elected position. You can't resign, or I just don't think it leaves a very good taste in somebody's mouth, particularly when they've paid the tax. They're asking for the penalty back. Okay.
So would we be comfortable? Let's do a roll call vote.
Yes. Mrs. Fryrick?
Yes, I think we should return them.
Oh, wait a minute. The motion is to deny.
Yep.
Oh, to deny. Okay, so then I want to vote no. All right, correct.
Mr. Posnell?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Scalette?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Schrader?
Yes.
Mr. Tillman?
Yes.
Mr. Sears?
No.
Motion passes. Item F is a change order for Sage Technology. The change order is for the amount of $3,372, and this is for the purchase of additional parts to connect the emergency status lights. This project was approved at a previous meeting. And in order to get the lights connected, we need these extra parts. Mr. Henry, did I miss anything from that?
No, that's accurate. The original design, they felt that the status lights could be directly connected to the gateways that we're having installed. In final design, they found out that in fact it does require classroom modules, and that was not part of the initial proposal. I requested those at their cost. They agreed to supply them at cost, and that is what this amount is for.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Questions, comments? I think this can be a unanimous roll call vote.
Okay. This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Item G, we are requesting the board approve a one-day event agreement with Refreshing Mountain in the amount of $2,246.54 for our Link Crew students leaders to participate in a leadership development experience this summer.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? This can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Item H are some items from the facilities meeting And I've asked Mr. Gerling to provide the board with an update on these projects.
Yes, and I can do that. Items 1 and 2 are replacement doors. Items 1 being a replacement door at East York Elementary. It's an exterior door to the kitchen. And item 2 is a replacement door at Indian Rock Elementary, and that is a side door, receiving room door. These doors were originally part of the overall door replacement project, which we elected not to go through with, but these particular 2 doors are basically to the point of failure. So we do need to replace these. Again, they're exterior doors, and safety and security are very important for these 2 doors. So we have prices both from one door from East Coast and the other door from Lauer Construction. So we'd like to go ahead and replace these doors. And item 3 is replacement of our purchase of a 2001 van, and that is our courier van, which is actually used daily. And currently that van is a 2004, and it no longer passes inspection. There's a number of things wrong with it. The current value of the van is about $1,000 and would probably cost us about $7,000 to put it back on the road. And actually this van was part of our vehicle replacement schedule and we would have asked to replace that this year anyhow. The next item is our bucket truck is in a need of major repair. Matter of fact, the age of the bucket truck, and we purchased it used. The bucket truck, I believe, is a 1994 bucket truck. We can no longer get parts for the lift, if you know what I'm describing. There's a cylinder that's leaking, which would cost over $6,000 to replace. And beyond the cylinder, their parts are not available for the lift. This is a truck that we use, I'll say, on a weekly basis for replacing outside lights, cameras, and such, and building maintenance. We're looking at bidding a used bucket truck. We really can't justify the cost of a new bucket truck for our use. So we're looking at bidding a used bucket truck. So those were the items that we have with facilities this month.
So we're only authorizing the advertising and soliciting of bids for the bucket truck.
Yes, that's correct. The van is a CoStarz van, so that we can go ahead and purchase if we have the approval to do that. And of course, the door project, if you approve that, we can go ahead with that. And then we will advertise for bids for the bucket truck. And when they come in, we'll bring those to you for approval.
Okay.
I have a question. Is it possible to do one vehicle this year and purchase one vehicle this year and another vehicle the next year? Are they both in such bad shape?
Yeah, they are. They're both in bad shape. We were hopeful to get another year out of the bucket truck, and we won't. So right now it's really inoperable, and it is a truck that we do use I'll say on a weekly basis. So unfortunately, and again, we're looking at a used vehicle, so I'm not sure. We have some estimates anywhere from 29,000 up, but yeah, we almost have to replace both of them this year, unfortunately. But then that'll avoid us actually purchasing a truck the following year.
So I think we're looking for a motion for H and I, correct?
They're separate items, but H would be inclusive of 1, 2, and 3, and then I is a separate item. Sorry.
Okay, let's do H first then. Can I have a motion for H?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? I think this can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary.
Yeah.
Hearing none.
Okay, so then can we have a motion for I?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Questions or comments? This can also be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you.
That brings us down to the informational section, and I'd like to share my screen. The first item is the year-to-date budget. To date, we've received 90% of our revenues, as Mr. Tillman pointed out. The majority of those revenues have been in local sources, local revenue sources. Our real estate taxes came in at 97.36%. We had budgeted 96% due to the pandemic and the economic downturn we had anticipated, but did not realize, fortunately. Interim taxes are at $127,000, which is about 72% of our revenues received. Earned income taxes through April 30th, we've received $2.1 million. That's 70% of our budgeted revenues. We had a good month in May, which brought in $524,000, which will bring that up to 86% of our total budgeted, but still behind prior years. In real estate transfer tax, we have exceeded our budgeted number by $247,000. Delinquent taxes, we've received $588,000 out of the $600,000 that we've budgeted. In interest earnings, we are doing slightly better than we had anticipated. To date, we've received $11,000 over what we have budgeted. On the expenditure side, you'll see that we have met 80% of our budget. Some areas are good and some areas are not so good. We'll see some savings in transportation to and from school, so regular pupil transportation, about $600,000 that we'll see as an estimate. We'll see savings from field trips and athletics, which did not occur this year. In substitute services, currently we're $80,000 over, and we still have the month of May to reconcile and be invoiced for. In cyber charter school, we're currently over $516,000, and we anticipate another $600,000 in invoices. Our York County School of Technology budget is over budget by $215,000, and of course, supplies, equipment, and other items in those categories are over budget due to COVID. But overall, we're on pace to what we've planned. Are there any questions on the year-to-date?
Kathy, I have one.
Yes.
Relative to the School of Technology.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know, when do we know what our following year enrollment is going to be?
We have been getting those in periodically. I anticipate that I should get one within the next week or two. I can update the board at the next June meeting.
It just seems 200,000 over is unusual.
It is, but there was one invoice that was a reconciliation due to prior year. So that plays a part in it, and it was too late for us to accrue it back to the prior year. So we had to hit this budget.
Can you give us an idea of what that amount was?
That was only 90,000.
So for this year, we're still 110 over.
Yes.
Is the tuition roughly what we spend? 15, 16,000?
No, their tuition is based off of their budget. I don't have that information relatively available right now, but I can get that to the board for the June meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, seeing that there are no other questions, I'll move on to the COVID-19 budget impact. Not a lot has changed since the update that I provided for April. Revenues are unchanged. However, in the expenditure side, we did have an increase in expenditures of 80,000. And you can see the difference between revenues and expenditures currently today is $369,946. So that is the impact above the grants. However, we do have money still available coming in for the various grants, such as the ESSA 1 monies that we have not received the full amount yet. The last item is the food service sales report. April was another good month for us. Our revenues exceeded expenditures by $39,000. That's mostly due to labor, salaries and benefits. We have several vacancies in food service. We have about 10 vacancies, and so that is reflected in the budget. As you can see in the following pages, what our revenues and expenditures have been from July to current, and our participation levels that we've seen. Are there any questions on the food service or any other items that I've reviewed? If not, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Ms. Bowen, last time.
Thank you. Sorry, my brother's sitting right next to me. I just wanted to say thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity. It's really, truly been a pleasure, and I'm so glad I got to experience this. I don't really have any report other than like graduation was yesterday, and throughout the weekend it went amazing. All the students really appreciated what they got to have, and also your new school board rep is here tonight, Neve, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Neve Casey. I'm going to be the school board rep for the 2021-2022 school year. I'm super excited to be a part of this and honored and excited to see how all of the decisions are made within our school district and be the voice for my peers.
Welcome aboard.
That's right. You've got big shoes to fill, Ms. Casey.
Oh, I know.
Thank you, Carly, for everything you've done.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for being so welcoming for me. It's been a great experience.
Have a good summer.
You too. Thank you so much.
All right, we have the committee reports. You have a link to the committee schedule. And Mr. Sullivan, Communications Committee.
Thank you. The committee met virtually on May 17th and approved the minutes that are linked in the agenda, which I have now double checked. We were treated to a wide-ranging presentation in our meeting by Dr. Krauser and Mr. Staub on district communications related to the pandemic, the BOLD initiative, and the marketing and outreach thereof, and tracking and metrics that are related to district communications more generally. I thanked and will here thank again all the district administration, staff, and faculty for their efforts over the last 15 months to accurately convey the district's health and safety messaging to students, families, and for everything else they've done while I'm at it. The committee will meet again on August 16th, and that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Posnow. You have before you the personnel report, which includes items 1 through 7. Would any board member like any of these items considered separately, or are there any questions on any of these items? If not, the chair moves approval of the below mentioned items.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Wow, we'll miss Ms. Kowaleski. She's been swimming with us for a while, huh? Okay, I guess this can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Mr.
That
Toman.
concludes my report.
Thank you. Mr. Toman, policy.
Good evening, everyone. I have the Policy Review Committee report. We have 8 policies that have been discussed at our March 22nd committee meeting and recommended out of committee for first read by the board at the April 12th and 26th meetings, second read by the board at the May 10th meeting, and adoption at the meeting tonight. Are there any questions on any of those policies? And I would move that we approve the 8 policies as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments about any of the policies? Then this can be a unanimous roll call vote. Mr. Chuli?
Oh,
I'm sorry, I was muted. I said that whole thing and it was muted. This will be considered a unanimous vote call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
Brief update that we did have a meeting last night, lightly attended, but we have 6 or 7 policies that were reviewed last night, and they will be coming forward for review in our June meeting. I would recommend that folks take a look at those, as there are several new policies that have been recommended and some things that we should take a look at. And if you have any comments or questions or suggestions on those before the June meeting, please submit those to Dr. Williams or myself. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have links to the activity report and upcoming events. And I would like to take this time to thank everybody that has sat in online with us. I think Vince mentioned we had 18 people still with us. Thank you very much for sitting in. There's a link to the board meeting schedule, and this would be the last opportunity to view public comment.
Hey, John, you skipped a
You
couple.
skipped the whole page, the whole
What did I
last page
skip?
of the agenda.
Oh, I did, you're right.
You're
Good.
that desperate. You're that desperate, John?
No, I'm just reading off of a screen instead of my paper. I'm cheating.
Yeah.
Ms. Fryery.
Okay, I have no report from the Lincoln Intermediate Unit, from the LIU Joint Operating Authority. We did approve the final budget, and I think I reported previously, each district's contribution will be the same as last year for the York Learning Center at $67,250, which we have budgeted already. And we did approve some security upgrades for the York Learning Center for some of the security doors where you go in to get your fingerprinting done, and the main entrance. Hopefully they'll get those started as soon as they can. And the York Adams Academy, I'm pleased to report that on June 22nd, we're going to have 20 to 25 students who are interested in graduating, and we've worked out a system where it'll be kind of abbreviated, and each student will be thereby be coming across the stage by themselves, and their family will be in the auditorium at that time. So we're really looking forward to that and to honoring these young people on June 2nd. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson, I skipped you as well.
Yeah, I'm taking it personally.
Yeah.
Okay, legislative report. I don't know where to begin. So I'll start with the mundane and move to the sublime. Senate Bill 73 on mandate waivers has moved out of the committee onto the Senate floor, as has Senate 664, proposing an optional year of school at parents' discretion, and Senate 442, promoting broadband access, and Senate 351 in favor of innovation schools. More importantly, the PSBA Charter Task Force report came out last week, and I think we all owe a debt of gratitude to our colleague, Ellen Fryrick, who soldiered on to make this document possible. Ellen, we're in your debt.
Thank you. My pleasure.
In addition, I would also like to offer my sincere thanks to Mr. Sears and Dr. Sullivan for joining me at the Cyber Charter Rally today, where we heard from various and sundry officials about the move and the push to get some kind of charter reform realized in Harrisburg this year. There is a feeling, I guess, a groundswell of opinion at PSBA that if we push hard and we encourage all of our friends and neighbors to contact their representatives and urge some kind of charter reform, especially in the area of accountability and right to know, there could be some substantive change coming down the pike. From my own view, I think they're being a little naive in not taking into account the countermeasures that may be taken by our friends in the cyber charter community as well as the charter community, in that I don't think they're going to give up the extra revenue they realized this year easily. I don't watch that much television, commercial television particularly, but the programs that I do view, I noticed that there seems to be an uptick in the number of commercials that are airing, sponsored by charters and cyber charter entities. No doubt they're finding good use for the excess funds that they've managed to garner from all of the public school districts. That's one way they're using them. If there are no questions, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Now, back to the public comment.
You don't want to hear about the School of Technology?
Well, Lois, I'm just trying to leave you out, aren't I? Let's hear about the School of Technology.
Well, we have a meeting later this week, but I just wanted to share that June the 8th is the planned for commencement at 6:45 p.m. at the York Expo Center. So we're happy for those York Suburban graduates from the School of Technology. And that concludes my report. Thank you so much, Mr. Posnell.
Mr. Chuli, do you have a tax bureau report?
I do, if you'd like it.
Sure.
Okay, so I received a report from the York County Tax Bureau that member distributions are up 8.1% from this time last year. That's $5,631,000. What that means to York Suburban for the May distribution, we received $524,000 last year. At this time, we received $422,000, so a difference of 101. They also reported that York County's unemployment rate is 6.2 for March of 2021. And last year, March of 20, it was 5%. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Now, hopefully I haven't left anybody out. Do we have any more public comment?
Well, as of now, we do have more public comment.
Okay.
See, the first time you originally asked, we did not, but here you go. Is everyone good?
Yeah.
And that's all I had for public comment.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else? Otherwise, I believe we're adjourned. Thank you.